Add up what you've already spent on your yard this year. The bags of mulch, the flat of flowers from the garden center, the solar lights you pushed into the ground along the walkway, the 2 pots by the front door, maybe a roll of edging you put in over a Saturday. For a lot of homeowners, that number lands higher than they'd guess. And here's the part that stings a little. The yard still looks about the way it did in early spring. 80% there. Not bad, not finished. It's easy to assume the answer is a bigger budget, or that you just don't have the eye for this. Usually that's not what's going on. The money you spent was real, and most of what you bought was perfectly fine. The problem is almost always the order you bought it in. Most yard money goes toward the finishing touches before the part underneath is ready to hold them. And finishing touches on an unfinished yard just sit there looking like more stuff. So this comes down to sequence. 7-yard upgrades that quietly waste money when you do them first. Not because they're bad purchases, but because they're early ones. For each one, I'll tell you what to handle before you spend there, so the same dollars actually show up in the yard you're looking at. The first is the thing almost everybody reaches for first. And the last one is the habit that quietly causes most of the other 6. Think about how you'd redo a room inside the house. You don't hang the art and set out the candles before you've decided where the couch goes. You place the big things first, then you layer in the details that make it feel done. A yard works the same way, and most of us do it backwards the second we step outside. A yard has a base layer and a finish layer. The base layer is the boring, invisible stuff, which area you're actually fixing, what shape the bed takes, and the plants and structure that fill it. The finish layer is everything that feels fun to buy. Mulch, edging, color, pots, lights, a little decor. The finish layer is what makes a space read as cared for. But it only does its job sitting on top of a base that's already settled. Put it down first, and you either redo it later, or you end up decorating a problem instead of fixing it. There's one simple filter that catches most of this before the money leaves your hand, and I'll give you the full version at the end. The short form: before you buy anything for the yard, ask whether it finishes an area or just adds another loose item to a yard that already feels busy. Keep that question in the back of your mind as we go. Upgrade number 1: mulching before the bed is actually settled. Start with the one nearly everyone does first, because it's cheap, it's fast, and it works for about a week. Fresh mulch is the quickest way to make a bed look cared for. You spread it, step back, and the whole thing suddenly looks intentional. So people mulch in April, before anything else, almost on instinct. Here's why that money doesn't hold. Mulch is a finishing layer. It belongs on top of a bed whose shape is settled and whose plants are spaced for the size they'll actually reach. Mulch first, then move a couple of plants in May or widen the bed in June. And now you're digging through mulch, mixing it down into the soil, and buying another bag or 2 to patch the mess. The mulch you paid for in spring is half gone by July, worked into the dirt instead of sitting on top of it. There's a second cost that's easy to miss. A lot of first mulchers pile it on thick and shove it right up against stems and trunks. Extension services are consistent here. In flower beds, 2 to 3 inches is plenty, and around trees and shrubs, you want it pulled back a couple of inches from the bark, never mounded against it. Piling it deep and tight traps moisture against the plant, invites rot and rodents, and you've spent extra money making the planting worse, not better. Before you spend on mulch, get the bed's shape and the plants settled first. Decide the line the bed will follow and get plants in at roughly their mature spacing. Then mulch last in a thin layer kept off the stems. Picture the mailbox bed that gets mulched first thing every spring and then dug up twice when the planting gets rearranged. Same bag of mulch, 3 times the cost, and it never quite looks done. Mulch is the last 10%, not the first. Mulch only sits on top of the bed. The next purchase decides the shape of the bed itself, which is exactly why doing it early costs even more. Upgrade number 2. Installing edging before you know the real bed line. Buying and installing edging feels responsible, and that's what makes it expensive. The plastic, the steel, the little pavers. A clean, hard edge reads as finished from across the street, and it's a satisfying weekend job. The trouble is, what an edge actually is. An edge is a commitment. You're locking in a line, and you're locking in a size. Set that line before you know how big your plants get, and you've usually committed to the wrong shape. That 1-gallon shrub that looks tidy in the pot can mature to 5 or 6 feet across. Plant it a couple of feet inside your fresh new edging, and within 2 summers it's spilling over the line and crowding the walk. Now you're choosing between trimming it back forever or pulling out edging you already paid to put in. Either way, that money's gone twice. The fix costs nothing and just asks for patience. Before you buy edging, test the bed line with a garden hose laid right on the ground. Live with that curve for a few weeks. Get your plants in and let them start to fill so you can see the real footprint. Then put the edge where the grown-up planting actually needs it. Think of the walkway bed that got edged tight and crisp in year 1, then swallowed the path by year 3. The edging wasn't the mistake, the timing was. Upgrade number 3. Buying decor before the planting can carry it. Now the fun stuff, which is exactly where a lot of budgets quietly drain. Decorative pots, solar lights along the path, a cute sign, a couple of garden ornaments. These are the personality pieces, the part that feels like you, and they give you something to look at the same day you buy them, so they feel like progress. The problem is what they sit next to. A decorative piece pulls the eye straight toward it. If the planting around it is thin or bare, all that piece does is point at the bare spot. A row of solar lights along a walkway with patchy dirt behind it doesn't hide the patchy dirt. It lights it up at night. 3 little ornaments scattered through a thin front bed don't make the bed look finished. They make it look busy and thin at the same time. You've added cost without closing the gap that was actually bothering you. If you want yard advice that helps the money actually show up from the curb instead of disappearing into another half-finished project, subscribe. That is the whole point of this channel. Before you spend on decor, get the green base working in that one area first. Once the planting reads as full and intentional, 1 or 2 good pieces look deliberate instead of cluttered. Decor is a reward for a finished area, not a stand-in for one. The front entry with 2 solar stakes and a thin foundation planting will always read as thin. That same entry with a settled planting and 1 good pot reads as done. Upgrade number 4, scattering cheap color everywhere. Color is the easiest trap of all because it's cheap and it pays off instantly. A flat of annual 6-packs costs very little and turns a dull bed bright the same afternoon. So the instinct is to grab a flat and dot color all over the yard. A few here, a few by the mailbox, a few near the patio. 2 things go wrong with that money. First, it's a bill you pay every single year. Annuals are finished at frost, so sprinkling the whole yard with them is a cost that resets each spring and never builds into anything. Second, color spread in small dabs with no repetition tends to make a yard look busier, not better. 1 petunia in 5 different spots reads as scattered. The same flowers grouped where people actually look read as on purpose. If you want color, concentrate it where it gets seen the most, the front entry, the one bed by the door, the corner of the patio you sit beside. And in a lot of yards, putting some of that color budget into a few reliable perennials does more over the years than rebuying flats every spring. Because the right perennials come back and build on the planting instead of resetting the bill every year. Color isn't the problem. Color spread thin and bought fresh every season is where the money leaks out. Upgrade number 5, filling every bare gap with small plants. Here's the one that feels the most like progress while it's quietly costing you the most. Bare ground in a bed feels like failure, like the yard is judging you. So the move is to buy a lot of small, cheap plants and stuff one into every open gap all at once to make the bed look full today. And it does look full, for a season. Then those plants do exactly what plants do. They grow. Now the bed that looked full is overcrowded. Plants packed too tight fight each other for water and nutrients. Air can't move between them, and extension guidance ties that crowding to more disease and mildew. So you pay twice. Once to fill the bed fast, and again in labor and replacements when you have to dig things up, thin them out, and move them apart a couple of years down the road. The honest version costs less and lasts longer. Find out the mature width of what you're planting and space for that. A common rule of thumb is to set plants at about 1/2 to 3/4 of their full spread, which fills in over 2 or 3 seasons without choking. Buy the right number for the area instead of enough to cover every inch on day 1. Yes, the bed looks a little open the first year. A thin layer of mulch covers that gap cheaply while the plants do the rest for free. A bed jammed with 1-gallon plants looks great the first summer and turns into a tangle you're untangling by the 3rd. Upgrade number 6, buying the plant before reading the spot. This one isn't about taste or layout at all. It's the most direct way people throw yard money straight in the trash, and it almost always happens at the garden center, plant in hand, before a single thing is known about where it's going. A plant only pays off if it survives, and survival comes down to whether the spot suits the plant. How much real sun does that bed get, and is it morning or harsh afternoon? Does the soil drain after a hard rain, or does water sit there for a day? Is it dry shade under a tree where most flowers slowly starve? Buy first and ask later, and you get the familiar loop. The plant looks great for a few weeks, struggles, and quietly fades. Then you replace it with the same kind of plant in the same wrong spot and lose the money all over again. Before you spend on plants for an area, spend 10 minutes reading the spot. Watch where the sun actually lands across the day. Pour a bucket of water and see how fast it soaks in. Then buy plants built for what that spot really is, not for what you wish it were. It's the cheapest research you'll ever do, and it's the whole difference between buying a plant once and buying it 3 times. Upgrade number 7, trying to touch the whole yard at once. The last one is the habit sitting underneath most of the other 6, which is why it's the one worth changing first. People want the whole yard done. The front, the side, the back, all of it, this season. So they start everywhere at once. A little mulch by the garage, 2 plants at the mailbox, a pot on the patio, a light by the back steps, a few flowers in the far corner. Add up those receipts and the number is real. Then look at the yard, and nothing reads as finished because the budget got spread so thin that no single area ever crossed the line from started to done. 5 areas at 20% feel like a yard that needs work everywhere you turn. 1 area at 100% feels like a finished yard with a few projects waiting their turn. Same money. Completely different feeling when you pull into the driveway. The fix is to work in phases and to be a little stubborn about it. Pick one area, the one you see most or the one that bugs you most, and put everything into it until it's genuinely done, finishing layers and all. Let that finished area be the part you actually enjoy while the rest waits. It also teaches you what works in your yard, so the next area goes faster and cheaper. A yard doesn't get better by touching every inch a little. It gets better when one area at a time gets all the way to finished. So here's the simple filter, the full version I promised. Before anything goes in the cart, run it through 3 quick questions. 1. Does this finish an area, or does it just add another item to the yard? Mulch over a settled bed finishes it. Mulch over a bed you'll dig up next month just adds an item. 2. Where will I actually see this from? The front door? The street? The chair on the patio? And is that one of the places I look every day? If you can't name where it pays off, it probably doesn't. 3. If I put this whole dollar amount into one area instead of spreading it around, would that area finally look done? If the honest answer is yes, that's usually where the money belongs. None of this needs a bigger budget. The cheapest decision you can make this week costs nothing. It's choosing the one area you'll finish first and refusing to buy the finishing layers until the base underneath is settled. Spend in that order, and the same money you were already spending starts showing up where you can actually see it. If you've ever put real money into the yard and watched it vanish, you already know the feeling this fixes. So tell me in the comments, what's the one yard purchase you'd take back? The thing you bought that never paid off the way you hoped? And if you'd like fewer of those, this is a good place to be.